Welcome, everyone. Welcome here in Barcelona, joining us on the channel World Seed after the very interesting discussion we had on the last panel of the World Seed Conference in relation to transforming food systems and how the seed sector should engage more within the agro-food value chain. We had the chance during the panel discussion to have one important speaker, Dr. Agnès Kalibata. Dr. Kalibata is the president of AGRA, the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, but also she was the UN Special Envoy last year when the discussion took place at the relation in the United System in relation to UN Food System Summit. And allow me, before I give the floor to the other panelists, to maybe just quote one element she mentioned in relation to AGRA's involvement on the field, on the ground, and especially in Africa. Dr. Kalibata said, at AGRA, we believe that access to high-yielding seeds and new varieties is central to address SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, of ending hunger, ending poverty, and sustaining natural environment. Very inspiring talk from Dr. Kalibata. We also had the chance to have three speakers and panelists with us during this panel discussion. Mr. Mauricio García de Quevedo. He is the Director General of FIAB, the Spanish Food and Beverage Association. And he will give us his perspective on the key outcomes of the discussion from his perspective on the food and industry system. We also had Charles Miller with us from Solynta, involved in the potato hybrid activity. And Mr. Vicente Navarro from BASF Vegetable Seed Company, but also Vice Chair of the Coordination Group of ISF on the value chain, especially to work on those special elements in relation to the engagement of the seed sector in the value chain. So first of all, may I ask you, after this very interesting discussion we had here in Barcelona, what will be for all of you the key outcomes from the discussion we had? Please, Mr. Navarro, can you start?
I think what's perfectly clear out of the discussion is that as a food system, the seed industry, we are an integral part of the solution, that we all have a big problem, and the problem is that we have to produce more with less. And in order to do that, for us as a seed industry, what became clear is that we have to move out of the comfort zone, go beyond the farm gate, collaborate with the value chain members, and communicate properly to the consumers in order to change the perception that sometimes is there about how innovation is perceived by society.
Very interesting. Charles Miller, do you have any key outcomes from the discussion?
Yeah, one of the things that I heard in the discussion today is that there needs to be further engagement across the value chain by the seed industry. And it is an uncomfortable thing for us. It's new. And we tend to think about our benefit only stopping at the farm gate after the farmer is harvested. But we really have an impact much further down the value chain all the way to the consumer. And we need to find alliances and partnerships so that we can speak with one voice and make sure that we can continue to provide the innovation, not just in the industry, but to the consumer, to help feed the world.
Thank you. And from another perspective, from the food and beverage industry, what was your key findings after the discussion today?
Well, my three key findings is, the first one is regarding the seed sector. I mean, they have to continue to do the investment effort they do to bring us to the society and to the industry the innovation needed, and that has to be continuous on time and keep that research efforts. The second one is that, and today has been a clear example, we need to work much more integrated as a value chain. We are so isolated as a part of the chain, and we need to see ourselves as a value chain to end consumer. and we share the same challenge, so we need to be much more aligned. And the third one is regarding to consumer. We need to give transparency to consumer and understand clearly the benefit of all what we do in terms of innovation and research from the seed to the product at the end of the day in his table.
If I may, Mr. García de Quevedo, you mentioned something very interesting during the panel discussion about how also you discovered the seed sector and the seed industry. And you even talk about that we will be, as a seed industry, key actors to, quote you, solve humanity problem. In that respect, what were your key findings in relation to the seed industry that you discovered here today with us at the World Seed Conference?
Well, indeed, with the challenge as a planet that we have, which are mainly two, is the increase of the population and the sustainability issue, the climate change, everything, and we need to feed that population, everything starts with the seed. And all the efforts, wide efforts that you do in research and investment that is similar or close to the pharmaceutical one, it's a clear thing that I think consumer doesn't know, and we need to reflect that the first thing they do, everybody, thank goodness, when they wake up is to have breakfast, because it's the feed that they need to start the day, and that comes from, from the industry and from the seed sector. So that's the key element.
Talking about productivity, maybe that will be a question for you, Mr. Navarro, because you mentioned also that we need to produce more with less. And also to address this topic about sustainability. How do we have an impact in terms of sustainability, and how do we measure that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because sustainability means many things. And, but one of the first and obvious things that came to us when we speak about seeds is that you can produce more, you can secure the production by introducing resistances, and this security on the yield is already sustainability. Obviously, when you compare the yields that we have today, almost in every crop, and the comparison of the gaining of the yield that we have achieved in the last 20 years, we have gained a lot of land, prevent to deforest a lot of land, because we are being able to produce enough seeds. But it's going beyond that. I think on the food systems, as we all know, approximately 40–50% of the food that we produce is not consumed. In developing countries, because of the value chain is not able to keep the quality of the product through it. In developed countries, because we have the food on our plate that we don't consume. We waste a lot. We buy more than we eat about this area. So the impact of the seed industry on sustainability, in my opinion, is crucial, securing the yield, but also allowing productions in areas where that until now has not been possible, and will reduce the impact of the CO2. Those could be two examples of that.
And that will be also in line with UN SDG in terms of addressing some big challenges in relation to climate action as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can prevent treatments if you have indeed the resistance, or you have the genes that allow the plant to be resistant per se.
Okay. Mr. Miller, coming from all the potato industry, we'll be curious also to get your view about the potato value chain, and how will that also be seen in that respect. And the second question will be also, after the human consumption, how does it refer also to animal consumption and all the work that is being done by the seed industry in that respect?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the value chain, you obviously talk about food that goes directly to your table, and potatoes are a big part of that. They're I think they're the fourth most consumed direct food in the world. And we have to be able to continue to utilize the innovation that we have at our hands and do it even better, because we're always being pushed to more marginal land, which means we're having to deal with lack of water. And in the end, we're also having to transport things much further away from the consumption centers. So we have to be able to innovate and use all of the technology at our disposal so that we can actually feed the planet. And that involves working with many partners across the value chain. And when you ask about feed, we also need to think about fiber. I mean, we're feeding cattle so that we can have milk. We're feeding chicken so that we can have meat, and many other examples, and even growing crops so that we can have fuel to our cars. And everywhere along that chain, there's an impact on the environment. So the more that we can make the reduction of that impact, the better we are.
Interesting, and I think you talked a lot about communication as well. And I think you mentioned that about 30% of the fake news are related to the agri-food industry. So how can we, as an alliance, a collaboration, work together in order to address those fake news and diffuse the fact-based element that will be interesting for all consumers to be aware of?
Yeah, it's true that from all the fake news that is around the world, 30% of it is related to our industry, our sector, our value chain. I think we need to do a step forward, and we need to came to the discussion. Social media has made much more popular any kind of comment or any kind of comments that is made related to our industry. And if we don't participate, it looks like it's true. And many of them, it's coming from economic interest, or it's coming from ideology. It's not coming from a fact-based evidence measure. So I think we need to put the media in a constructive manner, be more transparent with the population, so they have available the information they need to make their own assessment, but not only coming from one part of the social media, which is not always as fair or as scientific as they should do.
Okay, interesting. So communication remains key in that respect. Allow me to now move back to the innovation part and the importance of that. And for that, allow me to quote again Dr. Kalibatas in her opening remarks, mentioning that we hope to share innovative strategies with the seed sector representative for increasing access to good seed option for farmers, and most importantly, to ensure that no farmers are left behind. Mr. Navarro, when we talk about innovation and access to all farmers, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Indeed, promoting the value of the seeds or bringing innovation will not add anything if the farmers will not get access to our seeds. That's why this is one of the three key strategic pillars of the ISF, to secure the access to seeds to the world. This is an easy thing to say, but not always easy to implement, because it's subject to different regulators in different countries. And I think this is our role, our mandate as industries, the ISF and the Seed Federation, to work and to fight for it, and to guarantee that every grower, every farmer in this planet can get access to quality seeds.
So will you say that we all need to work together to make sure that there is an enabling environment for the policy side, regulatory side, to make sure that companies like
Absolutely.
the ISF will be encouraged to continue to invest in research and bring innovation to all farmers?
Exactly, and to guarantee that those farmers, indeed, they can get access to seeds. If they don't get access to seeds, in most of the cases, it's not because the companies don't want to be there, but because we cannot be there, at least at the right time that is needed for the farmers.
Okay. So access to seeds, access to innovation, transfer of technology. Very
Absolutely.
good point. If I may go back on the potato industry, what are the key elements in terms of innovation today and for the future? For the farmers, but also for the consumers, and also for the food processor and food retailers. And that's very interesting to look at the full value chain in that respect.
No, I think that's a really complicated question, and it needs to be addressed at many levels. This enabling environment is key. You know, potatoes are something that are very difficult to transport across borders, unlike tomato seeds or something like this, and it involves a lot of phytosanitary risk. And many countries actually block seed tubers from coming into their countries for good reasons in some cases. In other cases, not good reasons. And so one of the innovations that's happening in the potato industry right now is to introduce hybrids and to introduce starting material of true seeds. And what this does is it completely changes the dynamic around the potato growing industry, where in the past you would need maybe 2 or 3 tons of seed tubers, which were technically quite difficult to transport over a border, not to mention the logistic complexity of moving it from one country to another in trucks. Now with this new innovation, you're able with 25 grams to plant the same hectare of seeds, and they're perfectly clean without disease and certified by the local government who produced the seed. That's one, and it addresses so many of the SDGs, you know, whether it's improving health by not being forced to transport these things over a long distance on a bicycle if you're a farmer in Rwanda. The access to sustainable seeds as well is there. But then if you talk about going into the value chain, by being able to breed in a much more focused way with hybrids, you're then able to impact many things. You can impact starch very quickly. You can impact the ability to make a better French fry. You can impact the ability to use less water to be resistant to diseases. All these things now, with this continued innovation, will be accessible for the potato industry, for the farmer, and ultimately for the consumer.
Talking about consumers, you're more in direct contact with end consumers. How innovation is perceived in that respect, and how the seed sector and the seed industry also can help in order to also transfer and provide some clear information about innovation.
Well, consumers always has a good perception of innovation in regards about the nutrition formulation or new products with new nutrition characteristics or more accessible, or so those kind of innovation is something that the consumer perceive and wanted. What we need to work with the seed sector is other kind of innovation based on genetics, based on other concepts a little bit more complex to understand for consumers that has great benefits, but for historical reasons or ideological reasons, they perceive not as good as it is. So on that regard, I think we need to make a joint effort to have also consumer on board on this kind of innovation.
Mr. Navarro, in the scope of the newly created working group on value chain, is it something that the seed industry is interested to address in relation to key strategic objectives for ISF and for the seed industry at large?
Obviously, the coordination group value chain is aligned with the framework that the ISF is providing us. That's basically 3 things, which is to foster the value of the quality seeds. Second is promote innovation, and the third one is to secure the access to the seeds everywhere. You can translate it exactly in the same order in the case for the coordination group. We want to reflect what is the value of the seeds and what is our contribution of the food system. We want to do that through fostering the innovation. And the last one, and this is very important, is about how important is the value of the seeds and the sustainable goals for the planet. And I think those are exactly very well in line with the big objective of the ISF.
Great. Thank you very much. I think it was very well captured about the interesting discussion we had here in Barcelona. I would like to thank you for your time, your input, your expertise. And I think it's all about partnership and alliance. And that's what we are starting to build, and we'll be happy to continue. This was Ben Rivoire, live from Barcelona. Over to you. Thank you.
El 19 de mayo estaremos en Mercabarna haciendo un show cooking muy interesante.
Bueno, es el Congreso Mundial de la Federación Internacional de Semillas y lo vamos a celebrar a lo grande.
Luego vamos a preparar una comida con verduras, hortalizas, nuevas variedades, un reto tremendo, maravilloso y va a estar muy bien.
Vamos a compartir muchas cosas. Un abrazo.